She said, "I'm going on a girls' trip to Miami. Don't call me." I said, "Have fun." I checked the flight manifest on her shared cloud account. It was just 2 tickets. Her and her ex. I was waiting at the airport when they landed with, "Some guys find out they're being cheated on through lipstick on a collar. Others notice mysterious late nights at work." Me? I found out because my girlfriend of 4 years forgot we shared the same cloud storage account. The same account she used to book 2 plane tickets to Miami. Not 4 tickets for a girls' trip. Not 3. 2. Her name and Derek Patterson's name side by side. Seats 14A and 14B. Window and middle. How romantic. Let me back up. My name's James. I'm 32 years old, work as a cybersecurity analyst for a defense contractor in Northern Virginia, and until about 3 weeks ago, I thought I was going to marry a woman named Stephanie Harlow. We'd been together since we were 28, met at a conference in Atlanta, exchanged numbers, did the long-distance thing for 8 months until she relocated to be closer to me. She said I was worth the move, said I was different from every other guy she dated, said I made her feel safe. Turns out what she meant was, I made her feel financially stable while she figured out if the grass was greener on the other side. The other side, in this case, being her ex-boyfriend Derek. The same Derek she swore was ancient history when we first started dating. The same Derek whose texts she always explained away as harmless check-ins between old friends. The same Derek who, according to her, had moved on and was in a serious relationship with someone else. Funny how relationships work. You believe what you want to believe. You see the best in people because you love them. And sometimes you wake up one morning, check your shared photo stream out of habit, and find confirmation emails for a romantic getaway that doesn't include you. I remember sitting at my desk that morning, coffee going cold beside me, staring at that booking confirmation. Delta Airlines. Round trip, departing Friday, returning Monday. 1 king suite at the Fontainebleau Miami Beach, not 2 rooms, 1. With a king bed. My first instinct was denial. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she booked it for her and her friend Amanda, and the system glitched Derek's name somehow. Maybe there was an explanation that didn't involve my entire life being a carefully constructed lie. Then I did what any cybersecurity professional would do. I started digging. See, here's the thing about being good at your job. The skills don't turn off when you clock out. I spent my days analyzing network traffic, identifying vulnerabilities, and tracking digital footprints that people thought they'd erased. Stephanie had no idea that the man she'd been lying to, for who knows how long, was professionally trained to uncover exactly the kind of deception she was attempting. Within 20 minutes, I had access to every piece of evidence I needed, not through anything illegal. She'd given me her passwords years ago, back when trust was something we shared. I found the messages first, hundreds of them, stretching back 18 months. That's right, a year and a half of my life, thinking I was building a future with someone who was actively planning a different one. The messages started innocent enough, catching up, reminiscing about old times. Then they got flirty. Then they got explicit. Then they started planning. Can't wait to feel you again. Missing you doesn't cover it. He doesn't touch me the way you do. That last one really hit different. I'd spent 4 years trying to be the best partner I could be, and apparently the whole time, I was being compared to some guy who dumped her 6 years ago for a younger woman. A guy who, according to these messages, had recently ended things with that younger woman and decided Stephanie was worth revisiting. She wasn't going back to Derek because she loved him. She was going back because he finally wanted her again. And in her mind, I was just the placeholder who kept the seat warm until her first choice came back around. I could have confronted her immediately, could have screamed, could have thrown things, could have given her the dramatic blow-up she probably expected from any man who discovered what I discovered. Instead, I closed my laptop, finished my cold coffee, and went to work like nothing was wrong. Because here's what 4 years in cybersecurity teaches you. The best operations are the ones where the target never sees you coming. You don't tip your hand, you don't alert them to the breach, you gather your intelligence, you plan your response, and you execute with precision. Stephanie thought she was dealing with a regular guy, an average 9-to-5 worker who came home, ate dinner, watched television, and went to bed without questioning anything she told him. She had no idea she'd been lying to someone who reverse engineers deceptions for a living. Someone whose literal job description involves identifying when systems have been compromised and tracing the source of the intrusion. In cybersecurity, we have a term, dwell time. It's the period between when an attacker gains access to a system and when they're detected. The average dwell time for corporate breaches is around 200 days. 200 days of an intruder living inside your network, stealing data, learning your patterns, preparing for the final strike while you go about your business completely unaware. Stephanie had been operating inside our relationship with perfect dwell time. 18 months of undetected access. 18 months of extracting emotional resources while I thought everything was normal. But now I detected the breach, and she had no idea I knew. That gave me the advantage. In cybersecurity terms, I'd identified the threat actor but hadn't triggered any alerts. I could watch, gather evidence, and plan my response without her knowing she'd been caught. The predator had become the prey, and she didn't even know the hunt had begun. The next 3 weeks were an exercise in patience I didn't know I possessed. Stephanie came home that night, chattering about how excited she was for her upcoming girls' trip. Amanda and Rachel were flying down too, she said. They'd rented a house near the beach. It was going to be so much fun. She hoped I didn't mind holding down the fort while she was gone. I smiled, told her to have a great time, asked if she needed help packing. She looked at me with something like relief. Later, I realized it was relief that I was so trusting, so easy to manipulate, so completely clueless. Meanwhile, I was documenting everything. The messages, the booking confirmation, the lies she told me versus the plans she made with Derek. I created a comprehensive file, not because I was planning to sue anyone, but because I needed to know for myself that I wasn't crazy, that what I was seeing was real, that the woman who slept beside me every night and told me she loved me every morning was, in fact, living a double life. The file grew thicker each day. Screenshots organized by date, conversations categorized by theme, a timeline of their relationship that showed exactly when affection turned to flirtation, when flirtation turned to planning, when planning turned to action. I even found receipts for gifts she'd bought him, a watch for his birthday, a leather jacket for Christmas, purchases made with money from our joint account that I'd assumed were for household expenses. She'd been funding her affair with my contributions. The audacity was almost impressive. I also found the evidence of previous meetups I'd missed. A weekend in March when she said she was visiting her sick aunt in Georgia. Turns out there was no sick aunt, just a hotel in Charleston where she and Derek spent 3 days together. A Thursday night in June when she claimed a work emergency kept her late. She'd actually driven 2 hours to meet him at a restaurant neither of their usual circles frequented. Every discovery added another layer to the betrayal. Every lie I uncovered made me more certain I was making the right decision. Some men might have confronted her immediately, demanded explanations, given her the chance to talk her way out of it. I wasn't interested in explanations. Explanations are just lies wrapped in apologies. I wanted facts. I wanted evidence. I wanted to know exactly what I was walking away from, so I'd never be tempted to walk back. I also started making arrangements. See, here's what Stephanie didn't know. 2 months earlier, I'd been promoted. Significant raise, new title, expanded responsibilities. I hadn't told her yet because I was planning to surprise her. Maybe with a trip somewhere nice, maybe with a ring. I'd been saving, planning, building toward a future that apparently only existed in my imagination. Now, that promotion became my exit strategy. I spent my lunch breaks apartment hunting, toured 6 different places before finding the right one. A modern high-rise in Arlington with a secure building, 20-minute commute to work, and most importantly, a management company that could expedite move-in for a tenant with excellent credit and willingness to pay 2 months up front. The leasing agent thought I was just an eager renter. She had no idea I was a man building an escape pod while his girlfriend planned a romantic getaway with someone else. I chose the apartment for practical reasons, but I'd be lying if I said there wasn't something satisfying about upgrading. The place had floor-to-ceiling windows, a modern kitchen, in-unit laundry, and a balcony with a view that would make Stephanie jealous if she ever saw it. She wouldn't see it. That was the point. I was signed the lease under my name only, scheduled movers for the Friday she'd be leaving for her trip, paid extra for discretion and efficiency. I needed everything out while she was in the air, before she had any chance to suspect something was wrong. Our current apartment was in her name. She'd found it before I moved in, and we'd never bothered transferring the lease. Her furniture, her decorations, her space that I'd been paying half the rent on for 3.5 years. Walking away was going to be easier than I thought. I started separating our finances. We'd never fully combined them, thank God, but we had a joint account for bills and expenses. I calculated exactly what I owed, made sure I wasn't taking a penny more than my fair share, and prepared to sever that connection the moment she boarded her flight. I also reached out to an old college buddy, Victor, who happened to work for the same airline Stephanie was flying. Not as a pilot or flight attendant, Victor was in corporate, specifically in the department that handles passenger data and booking modification. We'd stayed in touch over the years, grabbed dinner occasionally, the kind of friendship that survives adulthood through mutual respect rather than constant contact. I explained my situation, not for sympathy. Victor knew me better than to think I needed a shoulder to cry on. I explained it because I needed information, and he was in a position to provide it. So you want to know when her flight lands? he asked. I want to know exactly when her flight lands, and I want to be there when it does. Victor was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. James, whatever you're planning, I want to hear about it afterward. You'll be the first call. The week before her trip, Stephanie started acting extra affectionate. More kisses, more compliments, more initiated intimacy. At first, I thought it was guilt. Then I realized it was something worse. She was making sure I wouldn't suspect anything, keeping me satisfied and distracted so I wouldn't question her story. It was masterful, really. I might have admired the technique if I wasn't the one being played. Thursday night, she packed her bag while I pretended to watch television. She held up different outfits, asked my opinion, modeled a new swimsuit she'd bought for the trip. I told her she looked beautiful. She beamed. That swimsuit wasn't for Amanda and Rachel. It was for Derek. And she stood there showing it to me like I was her fashion consultant for another man's viewing pleasure. I went to bed early that night, told her I had a headache. She kissed my forehead and said she'd miss me this weekend. I said I'd miss her too. We were both lying through our teeth. Friday morning, I drove her to the airport. She insisted I didn't need to, that she could take an Uber. But I said I wanted to see her off properly. She thought it was sweet. I thought it was reconnaissance. I walked her to the security checkpoint. She hugged me tight, told me she loved me, promised to text when she landed. I watched her disappear into the TSA line, waving until she was out of sight. Then I went home and directed the move. By noon, everything I owned was in my new apartment. Every piece of clothing, every book, every electronic device. 4 years of accumulated possessions, packed and transported in less than 6 hours. The movers were efficient, professional, and completely unconcerned with why a man was removing all his belongings from an apartment while his girlfriend was in flight. I left nothing behind, no note, no explanation, no forwarding address. The only evidence I'd ever lived there was my name coming off the utility bills, which I handled online that afternoon. Her flight landed at 1:47 p.m. Eastern. I knew because Victor texted me the confirmation. I also knew that Derek had picked her up at the airport in his rental car, a convertible because of course, and that they'd driven straight to their hotel. I spent that first night in my new apartment, eating takeout on my new couch, feeling absolutely nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even satisfaction. Just a profound emptiness that comes from realizing the person you loved never existed. The Stephanie I thought I knew, the one who laughed at my jokes and supported my ambitions, and talked about our future children, that woman was a performance. A character she played for 4 years while waiting for something better. Saturday and Sunday passed in a blur. I assembled furniture. I organized my new kitchen. I went for runs in a neighborhood that didn't remind me of her. I didn't check my phone for her text because I'd blocked her number. I didn't wonder what she was doing with Derek because I already knew, and knowing was enough. Monday morning, Victor called. Flight 2847, arriving at Reagan National, 4:23 p.m. Gate B12. You're sure? Positive. And here's the fun part. They're sitting together again. 14A and 14B. Thanks, Victor. James, whatever you're planning, please tell me you're not going to do something that'll end up on the news. Nothing like that. I just want her to know that I know. And I want to see her face when she realizes it. Victor sighed. Fair enough. Good luck, man. I spent the rest of the day preparing. Not physically. There was nothing to prepare. I wasn't bringing weapons or backup or a film crew. I was bringing myself, a comfortable pair of shoes, and 4 years of bottled composure that I intended to maintain. At 3:30 p.m., I parked in the airport's short-term lot, walked into the arrivals terminal, found a spot near the exit where passengers emerged from the secure area, bought a coffee I didn't drink, and waited. 4:23 came and went. Planes are never exactly on time. Victor texted me updates. Wheels down at 4:31, taxiing at 4:38, at the gate by 4:47. I did the mental math. They'd need to deplane, walk to baggage claim, wait for their luggage. She'd be emerging any minute. My heart rate stayed steady. Years of high-pressure work situations had taught me how to control physiological responses. I could compartmentalize. I could separate emotion from action. This was just another operation, another problem to be solved with precision and calm. A steady stream of travelers emerged through the automatic doors. Families reuniting. Business travelers walking with purpose toward ground transportation. Couples greeting each other with enthusiasm that suggested they hadn't seen each other in too long. I scanned each face, waiting for the one that had shared my pillow for 4 years. The one that had lied to me for 18 months. The one that was about to realize her entire deception had been transparent. And then I saw her. Stephanie came through the automatic doors, looking tan, relaxed, and happy. The kind of happy I thought I made her. She was wearing a white sundress I'd never seen before, carrying a beach bag covered in seashells, laughing at something the man beside her had said. Derek Patterson, tall, athletic, the kind of effortlessly handsome that makes ordinary guys feel invisible. He had his arm around her waist, the kind of casual possessiveness that says, "This woman is mine." His other hand pulled both their suitcases behind him, a gentleman's gesture that I'm sure made Stephanie swoon. They looked like a couple, a real couple, the kind that takes weekend getaways and poses for Instagram photos and has a future together. Then Stephanie saw me. The transformation was instantaneous. The smile vanished. The color drained from her face. She stopped walking so abruptly that Derek almost stumbled into her. I watched her mouth form my name, though I was too far away to hear it. I didn't approach, didn't wave, didn't make any sudden movements. I just stood there, coffee cup in hand, looking at her with the same calm expression I'd worn for the past 3 weeks. The expression of a man who knows exactly what's happening and has already made peace with it. Stephanie said something to Derek. He looked up, saw me, and his face went through its own transformation. Confusion, then recognition, then something like concern. He knew who I was. Had to. You don't spend 18 months messaging another man's girlfriend without knowing whose territory you're invading. For a long moment, nobody moved. The three of us formed a frozen tableau in the middle of the arrivals terminal, travelers flowing around us like water around stones. Stephanie looked like she might cry. Derek looked like he might run. I probably looked like a statue. Then Stephanie walked toward me. "James." Her voice was small, scared. "What are you doing here?" I took a sip of my coffee. Cold by now, but it gave me something to do with my hands. "Picking you up." "Isn't that what boyfriends do?" I thought I was at home, waiting for your text about how great the girls' trip was, how much fun you and Amanda and Rachel had at your rented beach house." I tilted my head. "Funny thing about shared cloud accounts, Stephanie. They share things." The blood drained from her face entirely. She actually swayed on her feet, reaching out to grab nothing because there was nothing to grab. "James, I can explain." "No." The word came out calm, almost gentle. "You really can't." Derek approached then, either brave or stupid, possibly both. He was taller than me by a few inches, broader in the shoulders, the kind of guy who probably got by on looks alone for most of his life. He looked at me with something attempting to be sympathy, but landing closer to condescension. "Look, man," he started. "I know this looks bad." "This doesn't look like anything," I interrupted. "This is exactly what it is. You two have been sneaking around for 18 months. I've read the messages. All of them. I know about the hotel room. I know about the swimsuit she bought for you. I know about every lie she told me while planning this trip." I looked back at Stephanie. "I know about the conversations where you talked about how I don't touch you the way he does." Stephanie made a sound like a wounded animal. Her hand came up to cover her mouth, tears already spilling down her cheeks. The sundress that had looked so carefree moments ago now looked ridiculous. A costume for a play that had just been canceled. "I'm not here to fight," I continued. "I'm not here to cause a scene. I'm here because I wanted you to know, face to face, that your secret was never a secret. I've known for 3 weeks. I've been watching you lie to me every single day, and I let you do it because I needed time to plan." "Plan what?" Stephanie whispered. "My exit." I finished my coffee, tossed the cup in a nearby trash can. "I moved out Friday morning, about 2 hours after you took off for your romantic getaway. I've removed my name from all the utilities. I've closed our joint account. I've blocked your number, your email, and your social media. Everything we shared is now separated, permanently." Derek shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't his scene and he knew it. He was an interloper in a breakup that predated his arrival, and there was no graceful way for him to participate. "You can have him," I said to Stephanie, gesturing vaguely at Derek. "That's what you wanted, right? That's what the last 18 months have been about. Waiting for him to come back around, keeping me as your backup plan in case he didn't. Well, congratulations. He came back, and now you can have him without the inconvenience of a boyfriend who actually loved you." "James, please." "Please what?" For the first time, something like emotion crept into my voice. Not anger, something worse. Disappointment. "Please understand. Please forgive you. Please pretend this didn't happen so we can go back to the way things were." I shook my head. "There's no going back, Stephanie. There's no version of this where I pretend I didn't see what I saw. There's no apology that erases a year and a half of betrayal." She was crying openly now, mascara running down her face, the perfect tan suddenly looking harsh under the fluorescent airport lights. People were starting to notice. A mother with 2 kids steered them in a wide arc around our little drama. A businessman pretended to check his phone while obviously eavesdropping. "I loved you," Stephanie choked out. "I still love you. I don't know why You don't know why? I laughed, and it sounded hollow even to my own ears. I do. Derek's your first choice. Always has been. He dumped you 6 years ago, and you've been waiting ever since for him to change his mind. I was just the guy who made you feel good about yourself while you waited. The reliable one. The stable one. The one who'd never leave because he didn't know there was a reason to. Derek had the decency to look uncomfortable, maybe even ashamed. His arm had dropped from Stephanie's waist, and he stood apart from her now, a man realizing the full weight of what he'd gotten himself into. I don't hate you, I told her. That would require caring about you more than I do right now. What I feel is closer to nothing. You're a stranger wearing the face of someone I used to know, and I'm done trying to figure out which version was real. I pulled out my phone, opened an app, and showed her the screen. I'm texting you one thing before I block your number again. It's a list. Every lie you told me over the past 3 weeks, matched with the corresponding truth I found in your messages. I want you to have it. I want you to read it and remember exactly what you threw away for a guy who already abandoned you once. I hit send. Somewhere in her beach bag, her phone buzzed with the notification. Goodbye, Stephanie. I turned and walked away. Didn't run, didn't hurry, just walked, steady and measured, toward the parking garage. Behind me, I heard her call my name. Once, twice, then nothing, either because she gave up or because the distance swallowed the sound. I made it to my car before the shaking started, sat behind the wheel for 10 minutes, hands trembling, breath coming in short gasps, the adrenaline that had carried me through that confrontation finally demanding its due. I wasn't crying. I wasn't going to cry, but I was processing something, some grief for the future I'd imagined and would never have. Then I drove home, my new home, the apartment that smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. Watson. Wait, that's getting ahead of myself. At this point, it was just me and 4 walls and the silence that comes with starting over. I ordered Thai food from a place I'd never tried before because there was no one to negotiate restaurant choices with. Ate it standing at the kitchen counter because I hadn't unpacked the dining chairs yet. Watched the sunset through those floor-to-ceiling windows and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Not happiness, not satisfaction, just pure, unadulterated relief. Like I'd been holding my breath for 4 years and finally remembered how to exhale. The next few days were surreal. Stephanie bombarded me through every channel she could find. Calls from numbers I didn't recognize. She must have borrowed phones from friends, co-workers, maybe even strangers. Emails to my work address that our IT department flagged and forwarded to me with concerned notes attached. Messages through LinkedIn, of all places, which felt desperate even by desperate standards. She showed up at my office building twice. The first time causing enough of a scene in the lobby that building security added her photo to their watch list. The second time, she waited in the parking garage for 3 hours until a guard noticed her car and asked her to leave. I had security escort her out without ever seeing her face. I didn't need to see her face. I'd seen enough. She tried reaching out through mutual friends, all of whom I'd already briefed with the condensed version of events. Most conversations went the same way. Initial shock, questions I was willing to answer, then their own decision about where their loyalty lay. The reactions were telling. People I thought were our friends turned out to be her friends who tolerated me. They took her side, made excuses for her, suggested I was overreacting. Fine, I cut them out too. No dramatic announcements, just silence. But others, people I hadn't realized were paying attention, reached out with support. Victor, obviously. A few guys from work who'd been through similar situations. My older brother in Colorado, who didn't ask questions, just said I could come stay with him anytime I needed to clear my head. I didn't need to clear my head. My head was clearer than it had been in 4 years. About a week after the airport, I got an email from Derek. Long, rambling, attempting to apologize in a way that still made him look like the victim of circumstances. He said Stephanie had been the one pursuing him. Said he'd tried to resist, but she was persistent. Said he never intended to break up a relationship, and he hoped I could understand. I replied with 2 sentences. She's all yours. Don't contact me again. He didn't. Stephanie's attempts tapered off after the 2nd week. Maybe she accepted reality. Maybe Derek convinced her to let it go. Maybe she just got tired of talking to voicemail and unread message folders. Whatever the reason, the silence that followed was the best gift she could have given me. I threw myself into work. The promotion I'd been sitting on became my focus. New projects, new responsibilities, new reasons to stay late and come in early. Not because I was running from my feelings, but because I genuinely enjoyed my job and now had nothing at home competing for my attention. 3 months later, I got another promotion, this time to a position that required relocating to our Seattle office. I accepted immediately. The day before I left Virginia, I ran into Amanda at a grocery store, Stephanie's actual friend, one of the people who was supposed to be on that girl's trip. She saw me across the produce section and looked like she wanted to disappear into the tomatoes. I walked over because I wanted answers, and because running from awkward encounters isn't my style. Hey, Amanda. James. She couldn't meet my eyes. I heard you're leaving. Seattle, tomorrow. That's good. Good for you. She shifted her weight, clearly uncomfortable. Look, I just want you to know, I had no idea what Stephanie was planning. When she said girls' trip, I thought, you weren't invited, I said. It wasn't a question. Neither was Rachel. It was just her and Derek from the beginning, and she used your names as cover. Amanda nodded miserably. I found out after. She told me everything. She was a mess, James. She still is. Is she still with Derek? Pause. Yeah, they're trying to make it work. Good. I meant it. She wanted him. She got him. That's how it should be. Amanda looked at me like I'd grown a second head. You're not angry? I was never angry. I was disappointed. There's a difference. I picked up an avocado, checked its ripeness, put it in my basket. Anger fades. Disappointment just becomes acceptance. And I accepted a long time ago that Stephanie wasn't the person I thought she was. She loved you, James. In her own way, she really did. Maybe. I shrugged. But her own way wasn't good enough. And I deserve better than someone's backup plan. I paid for my groceries and never saw Amanda again. New city, new start, new everything. The first few months in Seattle were an adjustment. I didn't know anyone except colleagues. I didn't have established routines or favorite restaurants or familiar running paths. Everything required building from scratch. But there's something liberating about starting over in a place where nobody knows your history. I wasn't James who got cheated on. I wasn't James who had that messy breakup at the airport. I was just James, new guy in the office, who seemed competent and kept to himself and sometimes brought really good coffee to team meetings. I threw myself into exploring the city, hiked every trail within an hour's drive, discovered a Vietnamese restaurant that became my Sunday night tradition, found a gym with views of the Space Needle and a membership fee that suggested Seattle took fitness seriously. Slowly, incrementally, the unfamiliar became familiar. Seattle was everything Virginia wasn't. Mountains instead of monuments. Coffee culture instead of political culture. Tech bros instead of government contractors. I found a condo with a view of Puget Sound, joined a hiking group, adopted a dog I named Watson because he seemed constantly curious about everything. For the first time in years, I wasn't building a life with someone else. I was building one for myself. About 8 months after my relocation, I met someone. Her name was Elena. Sharp, funny, worked in biotech, had no idea who Stephanie was, and no interest in learning. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment, both of us working remotely on a rainy Tuesday. Both of us gradually realizing we were paying more attention to each other than to our laptops. She asked if the seat across from me was taken. I said only by my self-doubt, and she laughed, and somehow that terrible joke became the foundation of something real. Our first official date was a hike that turned into dinner, that turned into a 7-hour conversation about everything from quantum computing to terrible reality television. She was brilliant without being pretentious, ambitious without being cutthroat, and honest in a way that felt almost foreign after years, with someone who treated truth as optional. By the end of that first night, I knew she was different. Not because of chemistry or attraction, though those existed in abundance, but because at no point during our conversation did I feel like I was being managed. She wasn't calculating her words or testing my reaction. She was just being herself, and she expected me to do the same. She didn't make me feel safe. She made me feel challenged, engaged, alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. I told her about Stephanie eventually, not as a wound that needed healing, but as context for who I was and how I got there. Elena listened without interrupting, then said something that stuck with me. She didn't cheat because of anything you did or didn't do. She cheated because that's who she is. You were unlucky enough to love someone whose character didn't match yours. Simple. True. The kind of clarity I'd been searching for without knowing it. We took things slow. Neither of us was in a rush to recreate old patterns or force something that wasn't there. But what was there? Respect, attraction, genuine enjoyment of each other's company felt more solid than anything I'd experienced with Stephanie. 18 months into my Seattle life, I got a message through LinkedIn from Stephanie. She was writing because she needed closure, needed to apologize properly. The relationship with Derek had fallen apart after 6 months. Turns out the fantasy didn't survive reality. They'd fought constantly. He'd cheated on her, with 2 different women, within the first 4 months. She'd caught him the same way I'd caught her. A shared cloud account he forgot to disconnect. Poetic, really. She was single now, back in Virginia, trying to figure out what came next. She wanted to talk, just once, so she could apologize face to face. I read the message twice. Then I deleted it without responding. A year later, Elena and I moved in together. A house with a big backyard for Watson, room for a home office each, and a garage I immediately filled with hiking gear and camping equipment. 3 months after that, I proposed. We were cooking dinner together on a random Wednesday. She was burning garlic and laughing about it. And I just knew. Pulled the ring out of the kitchen drawer where I'd been hiding it for 2 weeks and asked her right there, with smoke alarms going off in the background. She said yes before I finished the question. We got married the following spring. Small ceremony, immediate family only. Victor flew in from Virginia to be my best man. My brother came down from Colorado. Elena's parents drove up from California. 30 people total, in a botanical garden overlooking Puget Sound. Victor's speech included a heavily edited version of the airport story. James is the only guy I know who can execute a perfect tactical operation while maintaining complete emotional composure, he said. Whether that's tracking down security vulnerabilities or tracking down cheating girlfriends, this man does not panic. The crowd laughed. Elena squeezed my hand under the table. Update. 3 years later. People have been asking for an update, so here it is. Elena and I welcomed our first child last October. A boy. Thomas James Whitfield. He's got her eyes and my stubbornness, which means we're probably in trouble. Watson has appointed himself the baby's personal guardian. He sleeps outside the nursery door every night and follows Thomas around the house during tummy time like a furry security detail. Work-wise, I got promoted to director last year. Lead a team of 22 analysts now. The company opened a new office in Bellevue, and I'm running the West Coast Cybersecurity Division. More meetings, less hands-on technical work, but I've found I'm good at building teams. Something about identifying strengths, anticipating problems, and executing clean operations. Victor got married 2 years ago. I was his best man. His wife Sarah is a pediatric nurse, and they're expecting their first kid in the summer. He jokes that I set the bar too high with my proposal story, so he had to hire a flash mob to compete. Last month, I got another message. Not from Stephanie this time, from Derek. He'd tracked me down through some mutual professional connection, said he wanted to apologize for what happened all those years ago, said he'd made a lot of mistakes, and was trying to make amends as part of some personal growth journey. His message included some interesting updates. Stephanie had bounced around for a while. Arizona, then back to Virginia. She'd started some kind of wellness coaching business. She'd gotten engaged to a guy she met through a dating app, but the engagement fell apart 6 months later when she found out he was still married to someone else. Derek seemed to think I'd find this information satisfying, some kind of karmic justice report. I didn't respond, not because I was angry or hurt or even mildly interested, but because there was nothing to say. Those people were strangers now, characters from a story I'd finished reading years ago. I closed my laptop and went downstairs, where Elena was trying to get Thomas to eat mashed carrots while Watson hovered nearby hoping for dropped food. She looked up when I walked in, exhausted and beautiful, and covered in orange baby food. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just spam email." I grabbed a paper towel, wiped a streak of carrot off her cheek, and took over feeding duty while she went to take a shower. Thomas immediately grabbed the spoon and flung carrots at my shirt. Watson caught one midair. This was my life now. Messy, loud, unpredictable, and completely real. Stephanie wanted a placeholder. She got one. Just not the kind she expected. I held her place in line until someone better came along. Turns out that someone was me. Final update. 6 months later. One more thing happened that I figured was worth sharing. Elena and I took Thomas to Virginia for his first birthday. My parents still live out there, and they'd been pestering us for a visit since he was born. We rented a house in Alexandria for the week, did the tourist stuff, introduced Thomas to his grandparents. On our last day, we went to a farmer's market near Old Town. Elena was looking at some organic baby food vendor. I was pushing the stroller and trying to keep Watson from stealing samples, and that's when I saw her. Stephanie was standing at a booth selling homemade candles. She had a different haircut, looked thinner than I remembered, and was wearing the kind of flowy earth-toned outfit that suggested she'd fully committed to the wellness aesthetic. She saw me at the exact same moment. For about 5 seconds, nobody moved. Then she smiled. Not the confident smile I remembered, but something smaller, sadder, and raised her hand in a little wave. I nodded once. Polite acknowledgement. Nothing more. Then, Elena walked up beside me with a jar of baby food, asked if I was ready to go, and noticed me looking at something. She followed my gaze to the candle booth, saw Stephanie, and somehow immediately understood the situation without me saying a word. "That her?" she asked quietly. "Yeah." Elena studied Stephanie for a moment. Then she looked down at Thomas in his stroller, looked at Watson sitting patiently beside us, looked at me. "She seems small," Elena said finally. I hadn't thought about it that way before, but she was right. Stephanie did seem small. Not physically, More like she'd shrunk somehow, become less than she used to be. Or maybe she'd always been that size, and I'd just been too close to see it clearly. Let's go home, I said. We left the market, flew back to Seattle that afternoon, and I never saw Stephanie again. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.